breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson. Now a part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got a tremendous podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Thom Cunningham. He does great work over at runyourpool.com. We're going to be chatting with him about what he's all been noticing this season, dive into some of these weekend series with him, and just take a look at some trends that we have been seeing in Major League Baseball during the early part of the season. In the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Saturday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at Janet_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM. Naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Really did not get in any Twitter questions today, but we had a great day of baseball on Friday. So let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Chicago Cubs got a 4-1 win over the Miami Marlins. This was the early day game. Edward Cabrera gives up 3 runs in 5 innings, including a home run. For the Cubbies, it was Ian Happ that went deep for his 4th home run season as the man of steel, Justin Steele, continues to be rock solid. He was able to post up 7 innings, giving up 1 run along the way. By the way, both of these teams right around 500, so that's good to see. From there, Michael Fulmer, Mark Leiter Jr. were able to lend a scoreless inning. And then on the Miami side, Stephen Okert, Matt Barnes both give a scoreless inning, but Tanner Scott did allow a run in his inning of work. The top over team in all baseball, the Boston Red Sox, they got a little bit of a push on Friday as they are now 23-10-1 to the over, 5-3. The Red Sox were able to get a win over the Phillies as all of a sudden this is a Red Sox team that I believe has now won 5 straight games. They are undefeated here in the month of May as Chris Sale, not a great start, but he did get 9 strikeouts. Gave up 3 runs along the way though, but the bullpen for the Red Sox currently in the top 10 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. They get it done. Richard Blyer, Chris Martin both led to scoreless inning, and then Kenley Jansen, 3 strikeouts in the 9th inning, does not allow a run. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Phillies, Zach Wheeler, he had a rough start. 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, surrendered in 5 1/3 innings, hurt by a Kyle Schwarber error along the way. Gregory Soto, though, scoreless inning. Andrew Vasquez has been good in this bullpen, 2 scoreless innings, and Connor Brogdon, 2 outside the bullpen, but for the Phillies, not a lot doing with the bats, but not as little doing as the New York Metropolitans. They had the win, but if you took the run line, you were not able to get there on that one as the Mets, they've now scored 2 runs in their last 3 games, but they were able to get this win by a count of 1-0 as there was some very good play behind Kodai Senga, who gave up just 2 hits and 6 scoreless innings. You had from there David Robertson, Adam Ottavino, Drew Smith, all into scoreless inning, and lone run of the game came off the bat of Brandon Nimmo, his 3rd home run of the season. He goes deep off of Antonio Senzatella for start of the season and looks solid. Gave up that home run over the course of 5 innings. Brent Suter, 2 scoreless innings. Justin Lawrence, a scoreless inning. Unfortunately, the DK Nation write-up pick streak, that ended at 4. Still 10-3 in my last 13, and overall, if you've been taking these picks, we've hit at 60% thus far this season. So we'll look to get back online here on Saturday after the Cincinnati Reds let us down. 5-4, the White Sox get it done. Reds get up by a count of 3-0, which makes this all the more brutal. And then Hunter Green, he allowed a grand total of 5 runs in 5 2/3 innings. All came in the 5th and the 6th inning. For the White Sox, pair of home runs off of him. Elvis Andrus, his 1st home run season. Luis Robert, his 7th. Lance Lynn, can't say it was really a good start. He gives up 4 runs over the course of 6 2/3 innings, including a home run to Jonathan India, 2nd home run season. But the Reds could not get to a White Sox bullpen that has been brutal. Joe Kelly, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Reynaldo Lopez, a scoreless inning. And for the Reds, their bullpen did their part. Buck Farmer, 2 scoreless innings. Lucas Sims, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. That one was a little bit of a rough one for the Tampa Bay Rays. They get another W, 27-6. The second best 33-game start in the last 80 years to only the 1980 Detroit Tigers. 5-4. They get the job done. Of note for those that bet player props, Anthony Volpe, 11th stolen base of the season, but Johnny Brito, not the start he was looking for. Gives up 4 runs in 4 innings, including a pair of home runs. Randy Arozarena, Yandy Diaz both get their 9th home run season. Yankees bullpen has been terrific. They did have Jimmy Cordero give up a run in a third of an inning, but Michael King, 5 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. Albert Abreu, Ian Hamilton piecemeal together 2 scoreless innings, but for the Tampa Bay Rays, Yoni Chirinos, not necessarily the start he was looking for. 5 1/3 innings, gives up 3 runs. Garrett Clevenger inherited some runners, and then he allowed a home run. As for the Yankees, it was the first home run season for Harrison Bader, but they were able to pick it up from there as he had a combined 2 scoreless innings out of Colin Boucher and Kevin Kelly and Jason Adam. Scoreless 9th inning to be able to land a save. The Minnesota Twins hold the Cleveland Guardians scoreless by a count of 2 to 0. As if you've been taking a look at Guardians unders, those are going really well. The Yankees and the Guardians, your top 2 under teams in all of baseball. Yankees, 21 unders, 11 overs, and a push. Guardians, 20 unders, 11 overs, and a push. But for the Minnesota Twins, Bailey Ober, 7 scoreless innings, gave up 3 hits along the way. Ore Lopez, Yohan Duran, they both led a scoreless inning from there. And for the Minnesota Twins, one form of offense was Max Kepler, 4th home run season. That was off of Peyton Battenfield, and he lent a good start. 2 runs surrendered in 7 innings, including that home run. Aniel De Los Santos, Xavier Curry, they both led a scoreless inning, but nothing doing for Cleveland. Nothing doing for Pittsburgh, who seems to be slowing down a little bit as the Pittsburgh Pirates have now lost 4 straight games, 4-0. The Toronto Blue Jays, who had lost 4 straight of their own, they were able to get it done. Chris Bassett had the Pirates hook, line, and sinker. 7 scoreless innings, and then Eric Swanson along Jordan Romano. They were both able to end a scoreless inning, and George Springer got his 4th home run of the season. That came off of Rich Hill, as Hill gave up all 4 runs in this game in 5 1/3 innings, including that home run. Dory Maretta, 5 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. Chase DeYoung, fresh off the injured list, along with David Bennar, were able to end a scoreless inning, but for the Pirates, just no offensive production in this one. The Milwaukee Brewers, they were unable to produce against the San Francisco Giants. 6-4, the G-Men get the win as Corbin Burns, he had another rough start. 5 runs given up in 6 innings. Only 2 of them were earned. Willie Adames had an error out there in the field that really costed this team when it came to the 5th inning. But for the San Francisco Giants, they were able to get a home run off of him off the bat of J.D. Davis, 7th home run season. Then Hobie Milner gives one up to Wilmer Flores, 6th home run season for Milner. He gives up that home run in a third of an inning. Elvis Peguero was able to get a pair of outs out of the bullpen, and Bryce Wilson a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, Sean Manaea gives up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned over the course of 5 innings before John Brebbia, Camilo Duvall both led a scoreless inning. And you had 2 scoreless innings out of Tyler Rogers to be able to stem the tide as the Brewers. All of a sudden, they've been in a little bit of a funk. That's their 4th straight loss. A team that has been losing a lot this year is the Oakland A's, but they get a 12-8 win over the Kansas City Royals, as neither team could pitch in this one. Kyle Mueller gives up 5 runs in 5 1/3 innings, including a home run to Nick Prado, his first home run season. Brad Keller was worse, though. 7 runs, 6 of which were earned in 4 1/3 innings, including a pair of home runs given up by him. Ramon Laureano, 3rd home run season, and silently, Brent Rooker is putting up a good year. His 10th home run campaign for the Royals. Everyone that entered from the bullpen gave up at least 1 run. John Easley, 2 runs surrendered in 2 2/3 innings. Josh Taylor, 2 runs surrendered in an inning. And Carlos Hernandez gave up a run in an inning. The Oakland A's weren't necessarily sharp with their bullpen either, as Shintaro Fujinami gives up 3 runs in a third of an inning. He still has a 13.50 ERA, but Spencer Penn and Austin Pruitt both were able to get a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Zach Jackson, Sam Ball, scoreless 8th and 9th innings to be able to get that one in. Speaking of bullpens, this team is number 5 in terms of bullpen ERA. That'd be the LA Angels, and they get a 5-4 extra inning win over the Texas Rangers, as Dane Dunning was stunning Dunning. He gives up nothing over the course of 5 innings. Brock Burke, 2 scoreless innings, and then the bullpen yacked this one away. Jonathan Hernandez gives up a run in an inning, and then Will Smith, he got a little bit too jiggy with it. Between the 9th and 10th innings, gave up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, as Josh Jaboris could not hold on inherited runners after he gave up 3 runs in the 9th inning, by the way. Why trot him out there for the 10th? I have absolutely no idea what they were thinking there, but it is what it is, as Tyler Anderson gives up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned over the course of 5 innings. Jaime Barria, he goes 4 innings, giving up 1 unearned run, was hurt by a pair of errors by Anthony Rendon along with Zach Neto, but Carlos Estevez, a scoreless 10th inning. So the Angels are now 19-14. We shall see if that withholds what is still withholding this St. Louis Cardinals losing streak. They lose again, 5-4, and they are now 10-23. They are 0-4 here in the month of May. things have went so horribly wrong for the Cardinals. I believe they are now up to 7 in terms of their overall losing streak. Meanwhile, for the Detroit Tigers, all of a sudden, this is a bunch that they've been able to string together 4 straight wins, as Matthew Boyd, not a bad start here. He goes 6 innings, gives up 3 runs. He does allow a home run going deep for the Cards. I think Knizer was able to get his first home run season. Jordan Montgomery did his part, gave up 2 runs in 6 innings. There was a Tigers home run along the way from Avi Baez, 3rd home run season, but Jordan X yaks this one away, gives up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Giovanni Gallegos, Ryan Elsley, they both get a pair of outs out of the bullpen. Giovanni Gallegos, a scoreless inning of his own, but Cardinals leave 10 men on base as you had Jose Cicerno, Mason Englert combined for a scoreless inning. Jason Foley, he gives up a run in an inning, but Alex Lang, he holds down the fort. He lends a scoreless inning, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they held down the fort as well. They took down the Washington Nationals by a count of 3-1. Nationals have actually gotten really good pitching out of Josiah Gray. The problem is, this is now the 4th time in his last 6 starts that he's received either 0 or 1 runs of support. He does give up 3 runs in 5 innings, so it was a little bit more of a rough one from here, as you did have Corbin Carroll get his 5th home run season, but Merrill Kelly, he was on point. Gives up a 1 run in 7 innings, a solo home run to Luis Garcia, 3rd home run season. From there for the D-backs, Andrew Chafin, Miguel Castro both lend a scoreless inning, and for the Washington Nationals, Erasmo Ramirez, 2 scoreless innings, and Hobie Harris was able to end a scoreless inning. The Slam Diego Padres were able to slam the LA Dodgers, 5-2 the finals. Clayton Kershaw, not his best performance. 4 2/3 innings, allows 4 runs, including a pair of home runs to Fernando Tatis Jr. 3rd and 4th home runs of the season. That's gonna help you out. From there, Shelby Miller, a scoreless inning. Phil Bickford, 1 1/3 inning, scoreless, and I have no idea how this guy is still in the league. Wander Suero, or as he's known on the show, Wander I Suero, this guy sucks. He gives up a run in an inning. Meanwhile, for the San Diego Padres, Yu Darvish, very good start. Called on a little bit at the last minute due to a Joe Musgrove injury. He was dealing with a blister. 2 runs, 1 of which was earned, surrendered in 6 1/3 innings. Nick Martinez, 4 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. Josh Hader slams the door with a scoreless inning. You saw the Houston Astros slam the door on the Seattle Mariners, 6-4. They're able to get the W as Christian Javier gives up 3 runs over the course of 7 innings. Luis Castillo gave up 4 runs over the course of 7 innings, including a home run. For the Houston Astros, you had Yordan Alvarez get his 7th home run season, then Kyle Tucker gets his 6th home run of the campaign off of Matt Brash, as Brash, he was brash with giving up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Trevor Gott, Taylor Saucedo, goodbye for a scoreless inning. Gabe Spear, and out of the bullpen, as for Houston, their bullpen did their job. Brian Abreu, he gives up a run in an inning, but Ryan Presley is able to lend a scoreless inning. He is able to earn that save. And then the Baltimore Orioles, they earned a 9-4 win as they were able to get to Max Fried in this one. And Fried almost looks like fried, and he got fried up in this one. 7 runs, 5 of which were earned, surrendered in 6 innings. It was all about the 7th spot in the 7th inning that the Baltimore Orioles were able to have, as they were able to get a pair of home runs in that inning. Cedric Mullins gets his 4th home run season, and Anthony Santander would go deep in that one. He would have 2 in total, as he gets home runs number 4 and 5 of the campaign. His other home run came off of Joe Jimenez, as Jimenez, he gives up 2 runs over the course of an inning. Kirby Yates, Jesse Chavez, they both lend a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, for Baltimore, Dean Kramer, he had a really good start. 1 run surrendered over the course of 6 innings. Mike Baumann does allow 3 runs in 1 1/3 innings, including a home run to Sean Murphy, 9th home run season, but he did have a scoreless inning from Austin Voth, and Keegan Aiken, he was able to offer a pair of outs out of the bullpen. And if you're taking a look at Major League Baseball right now, it has been a roller coaster with regards to totals, but things seem to be evening out. We've seen a few more overs recently, 48 overs to 44 unders over the last 7 days, so that's a 52.2% hit rate to the over in this time span. Favorites have been not having a lot of success, 47 and 46 straight up, and among these 47 favorites that have won straight up, 13 have failed to cover the -1.5 run line. And if you're looking overall for the season, favorites still doing rock solid on the money line, 289 and 197, but among these 289 favorites have won outright, 72 have failed to cover the run line. Meanwhile, totals for the year, relatively equal, 237 overs to 232 unders. I believe we're up to 19 pushes as of right now. So that's what we're seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Friday. Now let's turn it forward to Saturday and chat with one of our good friends, as we've got coming up next, Thom Cunningham, who does great work over at runyourpool.com. We're going to be taking a look at these weekend series and what he's been noticing trend-wise in Major League Baseball. That's on the flip side right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN family of podcasts.
Are you ready to become a winning sports bettor? Schedule a call with SBIA to find out how their service can make you a long-term winning player. They've developed an innovative algorithm that maximizes units return, and they are so confident in their system that they offer a money-back guarantee. Sign up by October 31st and get their MBA package at no cost until they reach 10 net units. They treat sports betting like a business. So if you want to learn how to make your sports betting dreams a reality, visit them at SBIA1.com and check them out on social media at SBIA Sports.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. It is great to be joined by Thom Cunningham. He does great work as the lead writer over at runyourpool.com. He does an amazing job of taking a look at so many things over there, including being a great guy with regards to the Oscars, as he was our main Oscars analyst over at VSiN this past year, and I know that he's already getting caught up over there, but on top of that, does an amazing job, whether you like tennis, college basketball, college football, you name it. He does an amazing job with all of it, and you're able to follow Thom on Twitter at _TJCK_, and Thom, great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Greg. Always a pleasure.
Always great to be able to have you aboard. And Thom, what have you made of the first part of the season in general? Because we're a little bit of a month through. We don't know how the games for Friday shook out just yet. But that said, I just take a look at what we've been able to get thus far this season. I feel like there have been quite a few surprises, including teams like the St. Louis Cardinals that have been badly underperforming thus far.
Yeah, actually, I remember we talked about just how poorly the Cardinals were playing last time I was on with you, but I'm really surprised at the Mets going into their series against the Rockies, who, oh, by the way, just are on a winning streak right now. The Mets have lost 9 of 11 games. They were, one of the favorites to win the NL East. They've lost 9 of 11 games, but they're not the only New York team. The Yankees also are now in last place of the division entering this weekend against Tampa Bay, who you might also argue has been a little bit of a surprise this year. Just not necessarily that Tampa Bay has a winning record, but how many games above 500 they actually are. So I think the series between the Yankees and Tampa Bay this weekend is absolutely massive, especially for the Yankees. And then with the Mets, they're hosting a very hot Rockies team right now. They've won, I believe, 4 in a row, maybe 5, something like that. The Mets got to wake up and the Yankees got to wake up. I would probably circle these New York clubs as the biggest surprises for me.
Absolutely. And the good news for them is that on Friday they got to face Antonio Senzatella. On Saturday, don't see any numbers up for this game quite yet, but they get to go up against Austin Gomber and his Boeing 7.57 ERA. So that should be able to help them out a little bit. And I do think that it is interesting to gauge how some of these teams are playing, because if the Mets were having to go to Colorado and play the Rockies at Coors, I'd be a little bit more fearful. But I always take a look at home and road splits being of great significance. And I do think that with the Colorado Rockies in the series against New York, it is very important to be able to key in on that, because this Rockies team is always the epitome of that team that you want to be backing at home, and on the road you typically don't want any part of.
Yeah, and this is kind of entering the series. Some trends, the Mets, they've won 4 or 5 meetings against the Rockies. They're clearly not bothered against them. But the run total, you kind of mentioned it. If the series is played in Colorado this weekend, you'd be a little bit more fearful of the Rockies getting upsets here with a lot of runs scored. But Citi Field is just 4-8 on the over-under this year. Colorado, they've actually gone under in 8 of 9 road games against the NL East. Again, this is going into the weekend series. And the under's hitting 4 or 5 meetings going into this series between the Rockies and Mets. So I do actually think you might actually want to look under in this weekend series between the Rockies and Mets. Just a lot of signs pointing in that direction.
And we did see the game 1 total with Kodai Senga against Antonio Senzatella being an 8.5, with McGill and Austin Gomber. Would not be surprised to see something in that neighborhood as well. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Thom Cunningham. He does great work over at runyourpool.com. And you mentioned it with the Tampa Bay Rays. In my opinion, they've been the best to the positive in terms of surprises thus far this season. Not that we thought that the Tampa Bay Rays were going to be like trash or anything like that, but I mean, for them to enter into their series against the New York Yankees with the record that they do. The second best record to start a season since 1940. Obviously, those 1980 Detroit Tigers, they had that amazing start to a season, but for them to be able to start out 26-6 through 32 games has been absolutely amazing. And how do you think we should be gauging them? Because, let's call it what it is. I don't think that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be able to maintain a win percentage that is just this demonstrative when you're winning 81.3% of your games. That's absolutely amazing, including being 17 at home. But I do think that for the Tampa Bay Rays, what has been really striking to me has been the way that the offense has been able to perform, because we always attribute great pitching with the Tampa Bay Rays. They've got it once again this year, but the bats have really come along for the ride as well.
I still don't know if I'd fully forgive Kevin Cash for what he, taking Blake Snell out against the Dodgers years ago. As good as Tampa Bay is, and, I think we all expect them to make the postseason at this point, regardless of how we feel about how they've started the year, whether you want to call it luck or actually they're just actually that good. I think we all expect Tampa Bay to get to the postseason. Now the question becomes, when do they let the analytics shoot themselves in the foot? I don't know if I'm going to be, riding high on them all the way through, but I think I told you this last time, Greg. I'll buy Tampa Bay for now. If you want to give me the division, I'm fine with that. If you want to give me the AL pennant, I'm fine with that. But in terms of World Series champions with this unbelievable record they have, I'm with you. I'm not buying it to that point. I don't think they're just that legit. And it is mainly because I do think at some point they're going to overthink a situation, and it's just going to end up costing them, as it did in the past. In regards to this series, though, against the New York Yankees, this is absolutely massive for the Yankees. I think this is bigger for New York than it is Tampa Bay. And New York, look, they've lost 7 straight road games as an underdog entering this series. They're in last place in the division, which is pretty inexcusable. And you look at Tampa Bay, they have the best run line record in all of baseball, Greg. So Tampa Bay is going to be favored in a lot of these games. The run line -1.5. If they win these games by a lot of runs and they start covering these run lines at home against the Yankees, I think this is more detrimental to New York if they lose these games in Tampa than it would be for Tampa if they were to lose to New York.
And what I find to be so interesting about the New York Yankees as well, 10-21-1 to the over. So 10 overs, 21 unders, and a push thus far this season. That is by far the best record to the under that we have seen in baseball. That is not typically what you find with the New York Yankees. Typically, it's the exact opposite with them. As joining me on the podcast, we do have Thom Cunningham, who does great work over at runyourpool.com. And what has really been standing out to you in terms of some of these totals? Because I take a look at the New York Yankees being the best under team in all of baseball, and that's not something that I saw coming. Cleveland Guardians were the second best under team. That I could certainly see. Their offense, even last year, it was a little bit suspect, second worst in terms of home runs a season ago, but they've got that amazing pitching, so I totally see that. But have there been any teams that have been a little bit surprising with the way that they have not been generating offense?
Well, I think there's one series that's coming up. I would probably stay away from the run total, and that's the Orioles at the Braves. And the reason I say that is because at Truist Park this year, this is where the Atlanta Braves play, the OU is 11-3. There's 9.8 runs being scored per game in Atlanta this year. So one would think, okay, Baltimore, they love to hit the ball. Atlanta, they love to hit the ball at home. You would be eyeing the over in this series this weekend, but that's not necessarily true. Baltimore has gone under the run total in a very surprising 12 straight games against the NL East. Again, these trends are entering Friday. And the under has hit in 5 straight meetings between these two teams. So there's some trends here that tell you the under should hit. But then when you look at the run total for Truist Park this year and you see that it's 11-3 favoring the over, you kind of don't know what to make of this. This might be one where maybe you watch how Friday's game goes. I know Max Fried is pitching Friday, one of the Braves' best pitchers, if not their ace. This would be a series where I might actually stay away from the run total, even though you would think Baltimore, Atlanta, in Atlanta, it should go over. That might not be true. So I might want to wait and see how Friday's game goes before I dive into the run total market for that series.
And I think that the game that we're going to be seeing on Saturday is so interesting for it, because I think the toughest totals to gauge are when you've got an ace pitcher going up against not an ace pitcher, and you clearly have that here. Spencer Strider. If it's Max Fried who's the number 1 for the Braves, it's Spencer Strider as a close number 2. Some might put Spencer Strider as that number 1. If you do, Max Fried is a very close number 2. I do not care which way you go about it, but both of these guys are absolutely magnificent. But for Strider, he's going up against Kyle Bradish, who's got north of a 6 ERA, and let's call what it is. With the Baltimore Orioles, if there is a weak point for the team, it is their starting pitching. Bullpen has been rock solid this year. Starting pitching, not so much. These are always the games that give me a little bit of trepidation with betting the total on, though, because with a guy like Spencer Strider, you feel like you know what you're going to be able to get out of him, but you could have the guy on the other side in Bradish just light this game on fire all by himself.
Oh, absolutely. And so kind of your point right now, I think when you do have an ace go up against, a pitcher that gets crushed, that should be a sign to kind of stay away from the run total as well, because you really don't know how that game can go. So for me, Baltimore, Atlanta, Greg, I'm definitely just going to kind of stay away from the run total. Honestly, probably just move on and see what Saturday or Sunday might offer after I get a gauge for how this might go on Friday. But this is just one series to me. Overall, I'm just probably not keen on betting on, and specifically the run total.
Are you keen on betting on a pair of teams that entered into Friday with a grand total of 14 wins, though? As shared to be on the podcast, we do have Thom Cunningham, who does great work over at runyourpool.com, and that series I'm talking about, the Royals and the A's, the two least winning teams in all of baseball. I actually found quite a bit of value with the Royals on Friday. We shall see if that was able to get there or not, but how do you gauge some of these games involving teams that just absolutely stink, as everyone not named the Oakland A's and the Kansas City Royals have reached at least 10 wins thus far this season. Both of these teams are the dregs of baseball right now. And as a matter of fact, for the Royals entering into Friday, 2-14 at home thus far this season. But for the Oakland A's, they also own an ERA north of 7 as a collective.
That's why I actually would want to go over in this series. Did you know Oakland, they're 20-11-1 on the over-under this year? That is the third highest in baseball. And then you just mentioned they have a ERA north of 7. That's pretty insane. But Kauffman Stadium, you can hit the ball there too. There's 10 runs scored per game this season in Kansas City. The OU is 9-7. Oakland, they've gone over in 5 of 6 games when playing at night after playing the day prior. So it just seems like this is definitely going to be a series you might want to hit the over on. Kansas City, not for nothing, they're 16-15 on the over-under. That's not very enticing, but it's one game better than the under, technically. So I think going over between Oakland and Kansas City would be where I start looking for betting on this series.
Especially with Ken Waldichuk on the mound. It is north of 7 ERA, giving up right around 3 home runs per 9 innings. And Brady Singer, he has been singing the blues a lot this season. So that's not been great. And then got to get your thoughts on this guy as well, because one of my favorite fades is on the board for Saturday. Obviously, it's going to be depending upon the price, but we're going to have Jose Barrios in a road start. And for Jose Barrios, ever since the beginning of the 2022 season, north of a 6 ERA on the road. What do you make out of the Blue Jays in general, and just sort of some of these Jose Barrios starts? Because it's been one of my favorite bets the last few seasons, and I think that we're probably going to get good value once again on being able to fade the Blue Jays, as it feels like bookmakers don't adjust enough for just how bad Jose Barrios is on the road.
Yeah, and Toronto lost to Boston to close out that series, where Boston pretty much handled business against them. So they're kind of limping in to the weekend series, specifically going to Barrios. His last 7 games have been absolutely atrocious. His ERA is 5.29. He's pitched 34 innings. He's surrendered 20 runs in those 34 innings. Now he has 34 strikeouts in those 34 innings, so he's at least striking out 1 batter per inning. But you look at his game against Boston on May 1st, gave up 5 runs, 11 hits in 5 innings pitched. Prior to that, he did look pretty good against Chicago and Houston, but Chicago has just been pretty dreadful this year, and he pitched pretty well against Houston, but they ended up losing the game regardless, and he got credited with the loss in that one. And he only had 3 strikeouts against Houston. This is kind of a guy I'd probably be looking to fade right now, especially if he mirrors anything in his recent outing against the Boston Red Sox, in which he surrendered 5 runs. Just absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, that was absolutely atrocious. The opposite of Mr. Thom Cunningham. Is Tom, you're absolutely tremendous at being able to gauge so many different things. I know that you're doing an incredible job taking a look at little football, little basketball, little baseball, tennis, golf, you name it, you do it. And on top of that, I know you're a movie buff as well that was able to find a lot of value on the Oscars. So let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at _TJKC_ as you mentioned earlier. Definitely you can go to runyourpool.com, check out the blog. We got a lot of good articles there. But Greg, I don't know if you're going to know this or not, but the big one for us this weekend is the F1 Miami Grand Prix. We're going to go to the motorsports for this weekend as the next big event on tap for us. So really looking forward to that.
I actually am aware of that one, as there's going to be an F1 event happening in lovely Las Vegas later on this year. That is going to be absolutely tremendous. And Formula One, there's a little bit less variance in that sport than you're going to be finding in a lot of other sports, as a lot of it has to do with qualifying. Take a look at these teams that have been dominant time and time again, as there's actually been a little bit of a changing of the guard in that sport as well. So that has been so fascinating to take a look at, as Sainz, I know, has been very good in recent years, along with Max Verstappen. Those are the two guys that you want to be watching out for there. But a man that you always want to be watching for great content is Thom Cunningham, as he does a great job every single time he joins this podcast, much like today. So big thanks to Thom for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time, the podcast, to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Saturday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to get Thom Cunningham aboard. He does great work over at runyourpool.com. Covers a little bit of everything. Football, basketball, baseball, tennis. As we found out at the end of that segment, Formula One. List goes on and on. Every single time he joins this podcast, lends tremendous insights, much like he did today. So, big thanks to Thom for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Saturday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at unit_81. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, and any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So without further ado, let's dive in on this first game of 901-902 on the betting board. It is the Miami Marlins on the road facing off against the Chicago Cubs. Drew Smyly goes for the Cubs, and Brian Ewing is going to be on the bump for the Miami Marlins. There's currently no numbers up on this total because the Wrigley Field wind always decides these totals, but I do have my handicap for you, as I'm looking at a 10 or less to the over, 10.5 or higher to the under, with the wind blowing out at 13 plus miles per hour. So there's that aspect of it. But if you're looking at the money line, you're finding the Chicago Cubs anywhere between minus 162 to a minus 178, between plus 140 and plus 155, your number on the Miami Marlins. I set the Cubs minus 216 on the money line. I'm willing to go up to a minus 120 on the run line. So when it's all said and done, I do think that this is going to be a run line play on the Chicago Cubs. There's just no run line numbers up right now because that is determined by the total, which we currently don't have up on the board. So there's that aspect of things. But that said, I do take a look at Drew Smyly, and he's been really good. He had that perfect game / no-hit bid against the LA Dodgers a few weeks ago. But I mean, it's not just that. He has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts, 1 or fewer in 4 of those 5 starts. Got roughed up in his first start of the season against the Cincinnati Reds. Ever since then, he has been absolutely tremendous. Going up against someone annoying who, last time he faced off against the Cubs, was not too bad. Gave up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings, but you look at him overall for his career, and it's been shaky. 9.70 ERA. He's better than a 9.70 ERA pitcher, and from what I saw from him last year, his velocity is up about 2.5 to 3 miles per hour. So that is something good for him, but at the same time, do have my question marks with Mr. Ewing still giving up a lot of contact to a Chicago Cubs team that they're at the top of the National League in terms of overall batting average, hitting at 270 as a collective among guys that entered into Friday with at least 38 at-bats. Every one of them, except for Patrick Wisdom, was hitting at least at 250. And Wisdom, he's right now your man that's driving in the runs, as he's been able to supply 11 home runs thus far this season. You've got Cody Bellinger, Yan Gomes, Zico Horner, Ian Happ, owing at least a 294 for this team. C.A. Suzuki has come back in the fold. He's looked solid. Nelson Velasquez has been able to do a solid job as well. And for the Miami Marlins, this team is dead last in the National League in terms of runs per game. I do think that they're going to see a little bit of improvement here, as you've got guys that are able to get on base. Luis Arias is still hitting a .437. John Birdie, Garrett Cooper are hitting right around 270. Jesus Sanchez, Garrett Hampson, Brian De La Cruz, in between about a 250 to a 255. Yoli Gurriel's moved the line. Now you don't have a lot of power with the team as Orde Soler, Jazz Chisholm, only guys with 3+ home runs and combined 11 between the two of them. But these guys find a way to be able to get on base. They don't strike out a ton, so I do think that there's going to be a little bit of upward momentum, but I also do think that there's going to be plenty of runs in this game because this is not a very good Miami Marlins bullpen. A.J. Puck has been absolutely amazing for this team, but they're dealing with an injury to J.T. Chargois. Huascar Brazoban has not really been able to take those strides forward this year as well. As a result, the Miami Marlins currently 25th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. For the Chicago Cubs, we have seen Michael Fulmer not necessarily be too trustworthy this year. Big reason why they're currently 17th in terms of bullpen ERA. Brad Boxberger has been solid when they don't use him like 4 out of every 5 days. It's been a little bit rough for this team, but Keegan Thompson is able to be a relatively good long guy, but I do think that Drew Smiley going to be able to outduel Brian Hoying in the spot. So when it's all said and done, this is going to be a play on the Cubs run line. I'm willing to lay up to a -120 there. And like I said, with the total, 10 or less, looking at the over 10.5 prior to the under 903, 904 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road facing off against the New York Mets as Tyler McGill is going to be going for the Metropolitans and Austin Gomber hopes to not get gombered up by the Mets as it is a +190 to a +$2 price on Colorado, anywhere between -220 to -235 your number on the Mets. And if you're looking at that Mets run line, you're going to be laying a -110. In FSZ total, the under is -115, the over is -105. Needed north of a +220 to take a shot on the Colorado Rockies. We are not there, and I was willing to lay up to a -120 on this Mets run line. So going to be looking to lay the run line with Tyler McGill. Has been a little bit up and down. He's given up 3+ runs in each out of his last 3 starts, but he's given up 3 or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts as well. So it's been a case where he's been a bend but don't break pitcher. Hasn't gotten a lot of strikeouts this year, right around 7.5 punch-outs per 9 innings, but it's been significantly better at home. He's given up 5 runs in 16 and 2/3 innings at home. He's given up 4 home runs in 14 innings with a .579 ERA on the road. So this ballpark suits him well, and he's going up against a Colorado team that, we see it with them year in and year out. They always lead the league in terms of runs per game at home. When they leave Coors Field, they're dead last in terms of runs per game. The elevation changes get to him, and Austin Gomber, he has been getting gombered up this season. A big, giant 7.57 ERA, giving up 6 home runs in 27 1/3 innings. His walks per 9 rate is north of 4.5. He has not gotten a lot of strikeouts. There's not a lot of redeeming qualities here. Now, I will say for the Colorado Rockies, bringing in Brent Suter, who has a sub-2 ERA, has been good. Brian Hand is someone I like in the bullpen, along with Daniel Bard, and you do have guys who are able to put bat to ball. Elias Diaz, Chris Bryan are both hitting above a 300. Charlie Blackmon has been able to move the line as well. CJ Cron has not been able to give you a ton since the beginning part of the season, but he still has a power bat they're able to rely upon, and they do get back Randall Grichuk. And for the Mets, this team has been towards the bottom half of the league in terms of runs per game and batting average, as you do have some dead bats in this lineup. The entirety of the catcher's spot with Tomas Nido, Francisco Alvarez. These guys have just not been able to get on base. They're both hitting below a 225 along with Mark Canha, Luis Guillorme, Eduardo Escobar, Francisco Lindor. It's been Brett Batty along with Brandon Nimmo who have been able to move the line, along with Jeff McNeil as well. We give him credit. And then Pete Alonso entered into yesterday with 11 home runs. But what has been good for this Mets team has been the bullpen. Even though Edwin Diaz is going to be out of the fold for the entirety of the season due to what happened in the World Baseball Classic, the team entered into the weekend with a top 10 bullpen ERA. David Robertson has been very good for this bunch. Stephen Agosich, very good long guy. Adam Ottavino is a little bit long in the tooth, but he, Drew Smith, Dominic Leone, these guys are able to give you some relatively solid innings. And with the way that the Colorado Rockies just are unable to play on the road, the elevation changes always get to them. I do think that's going to be rough for the Rockies to be able to score. Last year, they were the only team in the big leagues that scored fewer than 3.4 runs per game on the road with fewer than 3 runs per game, so I did set my total at an 8.4. Going to be looking under in this spot. And when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, set them at a +222. I was willing to lay up to a -120 on the Mets run line, so looking at that Mets run line to go along with this total under 905, 906 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers hit the road face-off against the San Francisco Giants as, oh shucks, it's Alex Cobb going for the Giants and Colin Riaz on the bump for the Brewers. The Total on this game is 8.5. Over and under, anywhere between -105 to a -115. The Giants are between -155 to -165 favorites, between +135 and +148. Your number on the Brewers. Need at least a +138 to take a shot on the Brewers, mostly seeing north of +140. So I'm going to be willing to dive in on the Milwaukee Brewers with the San Francisco Giants. I think that they've got a nice pitching advantage with Alex Cobb at home. You take a look at Alex Cobb, and he had right around 2.60 home ERA, north of a 5 ERA when he was on the road. So clearly he pitches significantly better when he is at home, and thus far this season he's been able to do a solid job. I've been mentioning on this podcast how we need to be sort of tossing out the 2 games that we saw in Mexico City, but you really don't even need to do that with Alex Cobb, because in that game in Mexico City, he pitched really well. He gave up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. You're going to take that all day long. He's given up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts. Has done a great job with his command, 3 walks over the course of his last 5 starts. Alex Cobb has been really good this year, and for Rhea, been a little bit up and down. Honestly, with Colin Rhea, he's been better on the road than he has been at home, giving up 5 runs at 10 2/3 innings in his 2 road starts. Opponents are hitting just a 208 off of him, but when they hit him hard. 4 home runs given up in 20 2/3 innings. Been a little bit of a journeyman, so I do think that the Brewers are going to need to bank on their bullpen. The Brewers have been falling a little bit with regards to their bullpen ERA. The 9 runs that they gave up in the final 2 innings of their series against the Colorado Rockies certainly helping with that, as they're now 11th in terms of bullpen ERA, but it's significantly better than the Giants, who are 28th in the league in terms of a bullpen ERA with a north of 6 ERA, and you've got plenty of trustworthy guys in this Brewers bullpen. Peter Strzelecki had a rough go of it to end his series in Colorado, but overall has been solid. Meanwhile, you've got Jake Cousins along with Devin Williams throwing their Joel Payamps. These guys supplying a sub-3.3 ERA. Meanwhile, for the Giants, really don't have a lot of guys they're able to trust in. I like Emilio Duvall along Scott Alexander, a pair of guys that had a sub-3 bullpen ERA last season, and you've been able to have one of the Rogers do a solid job in Tyler Rogers, but that's that. Bet a lot of less than trustworthy guys, and for the Giants, they very much do rely upon platoon splits. Entering into this series, you had 8 different guys with at least 4 home runs, nobody north of 6, but got a lot of balance power with this team, and do have guys that are able to move the line as well. Mike Yastrzemski hitting above 290. Thairo Estrada has been hitting well above a 300 as well. Jock Peterson has been a little bit in and out of the fold, but you know that he's able to get on base as well. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, it's a younger lineup that has been very equal across the board, as you do have Rowdy Tellez. He's been able to supply the team with A+ home runs. He's been able to give them about a 260 batting average, but you do have a lot of guys that have an on-base percentage that's hovering right around about, I would call it a 310 to a 335, I think is a good range for that, as Christian Yelich, Owen Miller, Brian Anderson, Willie Adames, they're on that fold, losing Garrett Mitchell as they're at the scene because Bryce Terang, Joey Weimer, they've had a little bit of a tough time getting on, but the entirety of the catcher spot between William Contreras, Victor Carantini has been able to do a solid job. I do think that Alex Cobb deserves to be a favorite, but hard to place the Giants as too much of a favorite with the way that their bullpen is completely gas-can games. I did set my total at an 8.2. I do think that Colin Rhea going to be able to do a solid job against a Giants team that very much relies upon it. The deep ball with the Giants are averaging north of 2 home runs per game on the road. At home, that falls more like 1.2 because San Francisco is incredibly pitcher-friendly. So looking at the under and the plus price with the Brewker, 907-908 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals at the road to face off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Tommy Henry is going to be going for the Snakes, and Mackenzie Gore is on the bump for Washington. Washington's between a +120 to a +130 underdog, between -140 and -145. Your price on Arizona, 9 to 9.5 is the total on the 9, over is -120. The under is even on the 9.5. The under is between -115 to a -120. Over is anywhere between even and -105. And circumstance where I set the Nationals to where a +112 or higher, I'd be willing to take a shot. Seeing north of +120 across the board, I'm going to be willing to fire in on them. Now, with the Washington Nationals, the lineup has not been able to generate any power. They are dead last in the National League in terms of total home runs. Only guy entering into the series with more than 2 home runs, Jeimer Candelario and Alex Call. Call with 3 home runs, Jeimer Candelario with 4. So, been relatively deplorable there, but you do have guys that are able to get on base. Joey Meneses, Lane Thomas, both of these guys hitting between a 269 to a 279 entering into the series. CJ Abrams, Keibert Ruiz, Dom Smith, hitting between about a 250 to 260. Victor Robles, nearly a 4 on base. So you've got guys that are able to move the line. The Washington Nationals, actually the fewest strikeouts of any team in the big leagues. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, it's been all about home cooking for them. They're hitting about a 250 as a collective on the road, which is not bad, but at home, even though they don't generate a lot of power, right now, 11 home runs in 14 games entering into Friday night at home, they're hitting at 283 as a collective, as you've just had so many guys do a solid job of being able to move the line at home. Geraldo Perdomo, Pavin Smith, Nick Ahmed, Corbin Carroll, Josh Rojas, all hitting at least at 300 when they have been at home thus far this season. And you are noticing that Christian Walker is starting to get his butt into gear as well. This man, towards the beginning part of the season, it was relatively rough for him, but over the last 15 days, entering into yesterday, he had slugged out 5 home runs at hitting at 372. So he has caught some flago, but for the Arizona Diamondbacks, you do have some trepidation when it comes to this bullpen, as well as it's the bullpen that enters into the series 23rd in terms of bullpen ERA. The Nationals are more around 19th, but with the Nationals, Mason Thompson, coupled with Carl Reyes Jr., sub-2 ERAs. Hunter Harvey has been able to do a solid job. It's been a little bit shaky for Erasmo Ramirez, but by and large, these guys have been able to do a solid job. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, you've got a couple guys that are very trustworthy. Miguel Castro, Kyle Nelson, Andrew Chafin, Jose Ruiz, Joe Mantiply. They've all had a sub-3 ERA with this team now. Ruiz had only time with the Arizona Diamondbacks when he was with the White Sox. He was relatively terrible, but when you get into some of these guys like a Scott McGough and company, boy, things do not go there. And for Tommy Henry, I do have my trepidation with being able to back him because he throughout his career has given up nearly 2 home runs per 9 innings. He does not do the world's greatest job in terms of command. You take a look at his walks per 9 rate between last year and this year. It's hovering right in the neighborhood of 4. He needs a little bit more seasoning, in my opinion. Meanwhile, Mackenzie Gore has done a nice job of being able to hold down the fort, as he has given up 3 runs or fewer in 5 out of his 6 starts. Has been doing a good job in terms of keeping the ball in the yard, giving up 3 home runs in 31 innings. Needs to work on the walks himself, right around 5 walks per 9 innings, but he's done a good job of being able to get swing and miss stuff as well. A little bit north of 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. I really like the way that Mackenzie Gore is pitching, so I'm willing to take the plus price with the Nationals. Anything above plus 112, it is a play for me. I do think that both of these offenses are going to struggle, especially with the Washington Nationals just not hitting in general. Semi-till at an 8.4, so looking at the under and looking at the plus price with the Nets. 909-910 on the betting board. It is the LA Dodgers on the road facing off against the San Diego Padres, as Blake Snell goes for the Padres and Dustin May is on the bump for the Dodgers. Anywhere between minus 108 to minus 116 is your number on the Padres. Meanwhile, you're finding the Dodgers anywhere between a plus 104 to a minus 110, 8 to 8.5 as the total. On the 8, overs between minus 115 and minus 120, unders between even and minus 105. On the 8.5, unders between minus 115 to a minus 125, overs between minus 105 and plus 105. And I said the Dodgers had a minus 116 favorite. I think that the wrong team is favored. I'm going to be taking a look at this Dodgers money line. I do think that Blake Snell just needs to work on the command. Ever since he's gotten to San Diego, he's been giving up 4 walks per 9 innings. This year, 18 walks and 6 home runs allowed in 29 innings. Now, I will say this for Blake Snell as well. Has given up 300 runs or fewer in each out of his last 4 starts, but he's given up at least 2 in every one of them, and he's given up a combined 6 home runs in his last 5 starts, giving up at least 1 home run in every start, 3 plus walks in 4 out of his last 5 starts as well. Swing and miss stuff, still getting there right around 10.5 punch outs per 9 innings. And Dustin May, even though he throws hard, he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. He's been getting fewer than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings thus far this season, but 2 runs or fewer surrendered in 4 out of his last 5 starts. He too needs to work on the command. A little bit over 3.2 walks per 9 innings. And for the Dodgers, the bullpen has really been acting up on them. I do think we're going to see some sizable improvement moving forward. They entered into the series 22nd in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, but for the San Diego Padres, not like this team has been lighting the world on fire with their bullpen as well, 20th in the league with this regard. So both of these teams have had their issues, and for the Dodgers, they picked up Wander Isuero. This guy sucks. I mean, if you see Wander Isuero enter into a game for the Dodgers, you might want to be hedging, because that guy really lives up to the name of Wander Isuero. This guy sucks. But that said, you do have Caleb Ferguson, Brusardo Graterol. They've been able to provide a sub-250 ERA. Alex Vesia is currently not with the team. He was good last year, but just a disaster this year. For the San Diego Padres, Josh Hader, he has been absolutely tremendous for this team, and I've always liked Steven Wilson at a sub-3 ERA last season. He should be able to pick it up, but you're relying upon guys like Tom Cosgrove and Luis Garcia. With Garcia, he was good last year, not so great this season. But for the Padres, if you take out that Mexico City series, they're in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of both batting average and runs per game. You just have a lot of guys that they aren't earning the keep right now, as Ha-Sung Kim, along with Manny Machado, Trent Grisham, Juan Soto, all these guys are going to get 236 or lower for this team. They've gotten a nice boost out of Fernando Tatis Jr., but one of his 2 home runs this year went 308 feet in Mexico City out of 55 at-bats. So that's a little bit of an issue, and I don't think that Nelson Cruz continues it darn near 300. Though Xander Bogaerts has been terrific for the LA Dodgers. It was rough going the first part of the year in terms of batting average, but now you get Will Smith back in the fold. That's big. Max Muncy is right now leading the big leagues in terms of home runs. James Outman, he's been a hard guy to be able to get out. He's hitting about a 290. Freddie Freeman is back to hitting above a 300. Will Smith hits nearly a 300. What has been really killing the team is guys at the bottom of the fold like Trace Thompson, David Peralta, Miguel Rojas hitting a 205 or lower. But I do think that the Dodgers still have enough firepower to be able to get it done. The Dodgers, they lead the National League in terms of both home runs and runs per game. So this is a circumstance where I did set the Dodgers at a minus 116 favorite. I'm going to be willing to back them on the money line. When it comes to the total, I did set it at an 8.6. So whether you got an 8 or an 8.5, I'm going to be taking a look at the over, and I'm going to be taking a look at the LA Dodgers. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. It is the New York Yankees. They third face-off against the Tampa Bay Rays as Drew Rasmussen goes for the Rays, and Domingo Germán is on the bump for the New York Yankees. 7.5 to 8 is the total. On the 8, the under is minus 120. The over, it is even on the 7.5. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. And on the money line, you are finding the Tampa Bay Rays anywhere between minus 170 to minus 190. Anywhere between plus 155 to plus 165 is your number on the New York Yankees. And I made the Yankees underdogs of plus 187. So I'm not in range to be able to take a shot here. If you're taking a look at the run line of the Tampa Bay Rays, getting plus money here, anywhere between plus 115 and plus 120. I was willing to take plus 105 or greater. This New York Yankees team without Aaron Judge along with Giancarlo Stanton in the fold, one of the worst that you're going to find in the big leagues. They were able to get a nice home run yesterday out of Harrison Bader, which I do think that that's going to be a help out this lineup a little bit, but you take a look at Bader, Jack Bowers, Oswaldo Cabrera, Anthony Volpe, all these guys hitting at 230 or lower. I mean, heaven forbid you throw out there someone like an Aaron Hicks, Gleyber Torres. His on-base percentage is down to about a 340, which is where DJ LeMahieu's is. Anthony Rizzo, he's done a solid job of moving the line, but don't have a lot around these guys, and you don't have as many power bats as you did at the beginning of the season. Meanwhile, the Rays had Yandy Diaz and Randy Arozarena both get their 9th home run of the season yesterday. As you just take a look at the top of the fold, each of the top 5 hitters for the Tampa Bay Rays yesterday have a batting average of above a 290, and I think that pretty much every one of them have at least 4 home runs thus far this season, so it's been incredible to take a look at them. I mean, when you're talking about Isaac Paredes with 4 home runs at a 330 on base being one of your worst hitters in the lineup, that tells you how impressive it is, and the Tampa Bay Rays entered into yesterday number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got so many guys that are so reliable in this bullpen. Now, they are dealing with a little bit of an injury to Pete Fairbanks, which is why they've been giving Chase Anderson a little bit of a call as a long guy, but Jason Adam, Ryan Thompson, Colin Pouchet, Zach Birdie, all these guys have a sub-2 ERA, and then Garrett Clevenger is doing his job. And I will say for the Yankees, their saving grace has been their bullpen. Top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Clay Holmes has been absolutely terrible, but you take a look at guys like Ron Mandanacchio, Jimmy Cordero, Wandy Peralta, Ian Hamilton, all giving you a sub-250 ERA. That has been relatively impressive, but I do think that Domingo Germán is just going to be had in this spot by someone I really like, Drew Rasmussen. Rasmussen has done some great work at home over the last 2 seasons. Thus far this season, it's been a little bit more up and down with the 3.66 ERA. Hasn't given up a lot of hard contact. 2 home runs given up in 32 innings, but opponents have been able to hit 264 off of them. Last season, that was more of a 222, and at home last season, a 224 home ERA compared to a 349 road ERA. This is still a relatively pitcher-friendly ballpark. And then for Domingo Germán, the big issue for him has been giving up that deep ball, giving up 7 home runs in 34 1/3 innings in 2 road starts thus far this season, 3 home runs, 7 earned runs in total given up in 9 innings. I do think that we're going to see a little bit of reversal with this. Opponents overall are only hitting about $171 off of Domingo Germán, and after he was dealing with injury last year. Domingo Germán back up to north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I do like Rasmussen much more in this circumstance. The Rays, they just know how to cobble up this bullpen, and for the New York Yankees, I just don't think that they are going to be able to get to Drew Rasmussen in this spot. I did set my total at 7.2, going to be looking at the under. I think that the Tampa Bay Rays going to do a good job of holding down this Yankees team, so going to be willing to take that plus money price on the run line to go along with the total under. 9-13, 9-14 on the betting board. It is the Minnesota Twins on the road, face off against the Cleveland Guardians. Logan Allen goes for the Guardians, and Sonny Gray is on the bump for Minnesota. Minnesota is anywhere between a minus 113 to a minus 120 favorite. Meanwhile, you've got anywhere between even money and plus 106 on the Cleveland Guardians. 8 to 7.5 is the total. On the 7.5, over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. On the 8, under is between minus 115 and minus 120. The over that is anywhere between even and minus 105. I set the Twins at a minus 134. I'm going to be willing to ride with them on the money line, with Sonny Gray has been just magnificent this season. A sub-1 ERA, 0.77 to be exact, giving up 3 runs over the course of 6 starts, 35 total innings. Now, he's been having his walks issues a little bit, giving up a tad bit more than 3 walks per 9 innings, but he's able to get right around 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. You tell that he's finally fully healthy thus far this season, and he has been working out like a charm for a Twins team that they've needed good starting pitching. They've been relatively league average in terms of bullpen ERA, and they are going up against a Cleveland Guardians team that, if they are going to have one advantage, it's going to be in the bullpen. Thus far this season, 8th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA compared to the Twins, who entered into the series at 13th, and for the Guardians, they have had a pair of guys in Nick Sandlin along James Karinchak that were very reliable for the season, have their hiccups, but at the same time, you still have Emmanuel Clase, Angel de los Santos, Eli Morgan, Trevor Stephen, all being able to give you that sub-3 ERA that you know and love with these guys. The biggest thing for the Cleveland Guardians is they just don't put bat to ball, as you had so many guys last year like Steven Kwan, Ahmed Rosario, Andres Jimenez, Will Brandon, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Ramirez, only north of a 270. You do have Kwan still hitting at 275. Ramirez is hitting at 286. None of those other guys are hitting above a 236 entering into the series, and nobody on the roster has more than 3 home runs. The Guardians were able to make it to the postseason last year, being second worst in the big leagues in terms of home runs, but I mean, even they last year were hitting more than 0.6 home runs per game. This has been relatively deplorable for them, and for the Minnesota Twins, they've been a little bit cold with regards to their bats to begin the season, as well as Carlos Correa especially has been having a pretty miserable start to the season, as he, along with Joey Gallo, Nick Gordon, Jose Miranda, all these guys, I think at 225 or lower, but Max Kepler is starting to pick it up. He was able to get a home run yesterday. Orde Polanco has been able to give this team a breath of life. He's hitting at 290, and for Byron Buxton entering into yesterday, last 15 days, he started to look like the Byron Buxton of old, being able to slug out 6 home runs, hitting north of a 300 in that time span as well. With the Minnesota Twins, bullpen has been a little bit up and down. Yohan Duran along with Orde Lopez. Both of these guys are 2 gentlemen that I really do like. But Brock Stewart, you're bringing back Derek Rodriguez. Guys like this have not been great in the bullpen. Giovanni Morin, after he had a sub-3 ERA last season, that's been closer to a 6 this year. But I do think that the Twins going to be able to do a solid job in the spot, even though Logan Allen, I do think, has some upside with the Cleveland Guardians. I really liked him at the minor league level. Someone that would get a lot of strikeouts. Sometimes would get a little bit testy with the walks, but thus far has given up just 3 walks in 11 innings, 16 strikeouts. So he has been a very solid there. Doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. First 2 starts in the big leagues have been relatively solid, so I'm willing to trust in the under in this spot. So my total at 7.7. So taking a look at an 8 under, I just think that the Twins are a little bit more of a well-rounded team and have the better offense. So set the Twins at minus 134, taking them on the money line to go along with this total under. 9-15, 9-16 on the betting board. The Oakland A's set the road face-off against the Kansas City Royals. Brady Singer hopes to not be singing the blues for the Royals, and Ken Waldichuk is on the bump for Oakland. And shock, surprise, surprise, the Oakland A's are an underdog of any between plus 140 and plus 146. Meanwhile, you're going to be laying between minus 155 and minus 165 on Kansas City. 9.5 is the total. Overs between minus 115 to minus 120. Unders between even to minus 105. If you're looking at the run line of the Royals, getting that right around a plus 120 across the board, I was willing to lay a minus 115, so I am going to be taking a look at the Royals on the run line. The biggest reason why is that the Oakland A's enter into the series with north of a 7-team ERA. They are dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA with a 6.78, and now you trot out there a starter in Ken Waldichuk that just has not been able to keep the ball in the yard all season long. Part of a starting rotation with north of a 7.5 ERA. His ERA is a 7.26. he's allowed 10 home runs in 31 innings thus far this season with a walks per 9 rate north of 3. He gets about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's a work in progress. Now, Brady Singer has really regressed from last season. As for Singer, he's still doing a good job of not giving out a lot of walks. That was a concern for him early on in his career, sub 3 walks per 9 innings, but he's just been getting hit really hard, giving up 5+ runs in 4 out of his last 5 starts. He's only given up 6 walks in these last 5 starts, but the hard contact has been there, giving up 6 home runs in this time span, 8.49 ERA, and it's not like the Kansas City Royals are lighting the world on fire in terms of their bullpen as well. They currently have a 5.51 bullpen ERA entering into the series, as Scott Barlow, Taylor Clark are a pair of guys with north of 5 ERA thus far this season. Amir Garrett has just never really been that good. Josh Shamon and Aroldis Chapman have been relatively solid, and for the Oakland A's, they pretty much DFA'd half their bullpen. Prior to the series, you've got now guys like Rico Garcia, Spencer Patton out there, and honestly, it can't be worse than what they had before. They still have Sam Moll, who's had a sub-4 ERA the last 2 seasons along Zach Jackson, but not so great there. Now, I will say this for the Oakland A's. The team, in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis, they're inside the top 20, and they've been able to do a much better job when they've been on the road than at home of being able to hit. They are hitting at .213 as a collective at home thus far this season, entering into the series, hitting at .239 on the road, as you've had Brent Rooker, Shea Langolaris, and Jesus Aguilar as a trio give 14 home runs in their first 14 road games this year. So a little bit of something encouraging there. Now, you still have some dead bats out there in the fold, as just have not been able to get much of anything whatsoever out of someone like a Chase Peterson, who's hitting right around 200. It's been a deplorable season for Ryan Noda, Kevin Smith, Seth Brown, all these guys hitting at 220 or lower. Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Royals, now a lot of guys moving the line for this team as well, hitting at 231 as collective. It's been picking up a little bit more, especially for Vinny Pescatino. He's been able to give the team 6 home runs, hitting at 288, and Salvador Perez all of a sudden is picking it up as well. He had a really rough start to the season, but we recall the 48 home runs that he had a few seasons ago. In the last 15 days, entering into yesterday, hitting above a 3-er with 4 home runs, so that has been nice to see. But you still have guys like Nicky Lopez, Hunter Dozier, Mike Massey, MJ Melendez, Jackie Bradley Jr., Nate Eaton, all hitting at a 200 or lower. I do think that Brady Singer is going to be able to figure it out, and I do think that this Oakland A's team still relatively rough with regards to their lineup. They themselves are one of the worst offenses out there in all of baseball. So at a 9.5, I'm actually going to be looking at the under in this spot. I do think that there's going to be positive progression when it comes to our good friend and Mr. Ken Waldichuk. I don't think that there's any way humanly possible he continues to give up darn near 3 home runs per 9 innings. So going to be taking a look at the under. That said, this is a circumstance where with the Royals, I was willing to lay a price on the run line. I'm going to take that plus money, laying a run and a half to go along with this total under 917, 918 on the betting board. The LA Angels, they play us to the Walker Texas Rangers. Nathan Eovaldi is going to be going for the Rangers, and Reed Detmers is on the bump for the Halos. And the Angels are between minus 114 to minus 120 favorites. Meanwhile, you've got anywhere between even money and plus 105 on Texas. And the total on this game is, in most places, a 9, with the under anywhere between even money to a minus 115. The over is anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 120. Seeing one straight 9.5 out there. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And I did set my total at 9.1. Mostly seeing 9s. I'm going to be taking a look at the over. Got Texas Rangers bunch that does rank in the top 5 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Josh Young has been absolutely incredible for this bunch. And even though you've been dealing with the injury to Corey Seager, the guys just top to bottom have done a good job of being able to move the line, as you've got guys like an Ezekiel Duran stepping up, hitting north of a 300. You've had Marcus Semien, the aforementioned Young, both hitting about a 275 with Young and Garcia. They've been both able to give you 8 home runs this far this season. Jonah Heim has been able to move the line. And just take a look at the roster that they trotted out there yesterday. Their top 8 hitters were all hitting at least a 246. So that's relatively impressive. Meanwhile, for the LA Angels, you've been getting a little bit more out of Zach Neto. He's entering into yesterday, hitting at 262, not a guy that's going to give you a lot of pop. You rely upon Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, and Hunter Renfroe for that. All 3 guys between 7 and 8 home runs entering into yesterday. Taylor Ward starting to pick it up after a little bit of a rough season, but still hitting right around a 235 along with Brendan Drury, along with Luis Renifo, and the injury to Logan O'Hoppe has been hurting the Angels, but I was willing to set them at a minus 124 because I have a pitcher in Nathan Eovaldi that always gives up a lot of contact. Yeah, take a look ever since the beginning of the 2014 season, so a sample size of darn near 10 years, and he's got an opponent's batting average that's hovering right around at 264. He does does give up quite a bit of hard contact thus far this season. Has allowed just 1 home run in 36 and 2/3 innings. I do not think that is going to be withstanding. Always done his good job with his command. 5 walks in 36 and 2/3 innings. Reed Detmers, he went down to the minor leagues last season and really worked on some stuff, and that swing and miss stuff, it is still there for him thus far this season, as he's been able to get about 10.5 punch-outs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate has crept up a little bit north of 3. He does need to work on that a little bit, but I think that he's going to be able to do a solid job there. And when it comes to this Angels bullpen, as insane as it is, entering into the series, they were ranked in terms of bullpen ERAs number 5. Do I think that's going to be the case at the end of the year? No, but maybe we poop on them a little bit too hard, as you've been able to have Matt Moore be terrific. Sub-2 ERA over the last 2 seasons. Chris Savinsky entered into yesterday, having not allowed a run all season long. Andrew Wantz, Ryan Tepera, they're not great, although Wantz has a sub-1 ERA this year. I don't know how he's been able to pull that off. Carlos Estevez has been solid. Meanwhile, for the Texas Rangers, Jonathan Hernandez, Brock Burke, Jose Leclerc, these guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA really since the beginning part of last season. Josh Saboris has been a little bit up and down, though, so I do think that Detmer's going to be able to outduel Nathan Eovaldi. I do think that you're going to be getting quite a few runs in this game, and I do think that both of these bullpens are going to be seeing a little bit of negative regression. So I did set my total on 9.1, looking at the 9 over with the Angels. Wanted to lay up to a minus 123 with them as well. 919, 920 on the betting board. It is the Houston Astros that the road face-off against the Seattle Mariners, as Marco Gonzalez is going to be going for the M's, and J.P. France is on the bump for the Houston Astros. Astros are anywhere between even money and plus 105. Meanwhile, between minus 112 and minus 120, your price on the Mariners. 8.5 is the total. The unders between minus 110 to a minus 115. The overs between minus 105 to a minus 110. And I made the Astros the favorite in this spot. I made them a minus 127 favorite, with J.P. France. He's going to be making his first career start, as it was with the Sugarland. I believe that they are now Space Cowboys. They used to be the Skeeters, and he's thus far the season has been solid. 2.33 ERA with a little bit over 12 punch-outs per 9 innings. I fear length with him, though, because last year at the minor league level, about 4 walks per 9 innings. Thus far this season, 5 walks per 9 innings. That's good swing and miss stuff. Played as college baseball senior year at Mississippi State, where he was able to light up the radar gun, but once again, did have problems with command over there as well, and I do think that is going to be the case here. But he does go up against someone that Marco Gonzalez said just isn't very good. He's got a 4.74 ERA, and quite frankly, he's lucky he hasn't been drilled even harder. He has been able to get more around 7.5 punch-outs per 9 innings thus far this season, but last 2 years, sub 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and I do think that this is a case where the Houston Astros are going to be able to clobber him. You've got Yordan Alvarez, who's currently sitting on 6 home runs. It's been a little bit of a slow start to the season for him. You've been able to get quite a bit of production out of Kyle Tucker. He's been able to give you 5 home runs, hitting about a 260, but the on-base has been there. Alex Bregman, once again, having a slow start for the team, but Mauricio Dubon has been able to hit above a 300. You've been able to get some nice production out of Corey Julks, who's been able to hit about a 285 as well. You have a couple guys like Martin Maldonado and company that need to pick it up, and Jose Abreu, 125 at-bats, 0 home runs. That's just very strange, but the Seattle Mariners team, they have not been able to move the line this season. They didn't get 218 as a collective and entered into the series dead last in the big leagues with that regard, though Jarred Kelenic was able to do a nice job. 7 home runs, hitting at 300. He was one of just 2 players in the starting lineup yesterday, though, hitting above a 237. The other guy was Taylor Trammell, who has 8 at-bats thus far this season, as Colton Wong, Teoscar Hernandez, A.J. Pollock, Cal Raleigh. I mean, just pretty much name off the guy. They're all hitting a 220 or lower for the squad. Now, for the Seattle Mariners, bullpen has been absolutely electrifying for this team. They've had to mix and match with injuries to guys like Andres Munoz and company, and yet they're still number 2 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. It's guys like Gabe Spear, Taylor Saucedo. They've come in and they've held down the fort. Justin Topa, throw him in there. All these guys have been able to provide a sub-2 ERA. It's really been Matt Brash along Diego Castillo have been the trouble spots for the team. Meanwhile, the Houston Astros, they were number 1 in the league in terms of bullpen ERA last season. They entered into this series number 4, as they've been able to get it once again from so many of these guys. Ryan Stanek has seen a little bit of regression, but you've got Hector Neris, Phil Maton, Brian Abreu, who have all been able to provide a sub-2.1 ERA. Rafael Montero has been able to do a solid job as well, but I do think that Marco Gonzalez gets lit up, and I do think that France while he doesn't deliver a lot of length, I think that he's going to be able to be effective enough for a few innings to be able to get the Houston Astros through the window. So I did set the total at an 8.8. Here at an 8.5, I'm going to be taking a look at the over, and with France and company, I'm going to be willing to lay the number/take it plus price with the Houston Astros, as I did make them a -127 favorite. 921, 922 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers on the road facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals. We know Adam Wainwright is going for the Cards, and Spencer Turnbull is on the bump for Detroit. The Cardinals, you're going to be getting them anywhere between -185 and -205 as favorites. Meanwhile, anywhere between +162 and +175 your number on Detroit. 8.5 to 9 is the total on the 9. Under is -120. The over is even on the 8.5. Over is between -115 to a -120. The under then is anywhere between even a -105. And with the Tigers, I needed at least a +173 to take a shot. Being able to get the +175 like I'm seeing right now, I am going to be willing to take them. For Adam Wainwright, he did not look good in his minor league rehab appearances, trying to work his way back up to make this start, as in 3 starts he went a grand total of 13 innings, posted up a 6.23 ERA. Now, the good news is the command was there. He was giving up fewer than 2 walks per 9 innings, but it's just a case where Adam Wainwright is trying to come back from injury, and this guy is about as ancient gets. He's 41 years old. The only starting pitcher in the big leagues that is older than him, that would be Rich Hill. And you've got a guy in Spencer Turnbull that, has he been really reliable this year? No, because he missed the entirety of the 2022 campaign, but he always does a good job of being able to limit our contact. Even this year, he's only giving up about a home run per 9 innings and has looked better recently. 3 runs or fewer surrendered in each out of his last 4 starts, giving up just 2 home runs in that time span. Big thing for him is the walks, as he has been giving up right around 4.5 walks per 9 innings. And for the Detroit Tigers bullpen, it is not the same as it was last year. Last year, you had Gregory Soto, Andrew Chafin, so many guys that you were able to rely upon, and as far as this season, it's a Detroit Tigers bullpen that's right around 21st in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, but you still have a pair of guys in Alex Lang along Jason Foley that'll be able to provide a sub-2 ERA. Jason Shreve has been terrible, but getting back to Will Vest, I think, is big. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, right around 15th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Entering into yesterday, Giovanni Gallegos. So had some bad moments, but still like him overall. Ryan Helsley has not been himself since the end of the 2022 season, though. Genesis Cabrera has been nails, and Jojo Romero has been able to provide a sub-2 ERA. I don't think that is going to be withstanding for very long. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, I do think that it's just a matter of time before this lineup is able to bust out, as you really had only a few guys with north of 2 home runs entering into yesterday. Nolan Gorman has been incredible, hitting about a 270 with 7 home runs. Tommy Edman, Paul Goldschmidt, a combined 9 home runs thus far this season. And then Alec Burleson with 3. That's about it, though. You do have a lot of guys that they're able to get on base, move the line. Paul Goldschmidt still hitting a 300 for the team. And then Tommy Edman, Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, only between about a 262 to 275. Olsen Contreras has been able to get on as well. And for the Detroit Tigers, that is a big issue for this team. They're dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, though. They've been getting a little bit more recently out of guys like Matt Beerling and Zach McKinstry hitting above a 260 entering into yesterday. Really, what's killing this team is guys like Gary Carpenter, Miguel Cabrera, Nick Maton. Insert your guys hitting a 225 or lower here, and they've got 2 guys in Gary Carpenter and Nick Maton above 3 home runs thus far this season, and both have 4. So I do think that is going to be a little bit rough. So Adam Wainwright getting a nice soft landing spot for his first start of the year, but I do think that Spencer Turnbull is going to be able to do an okay job against the St. Louis Cardinals team that plays in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark that has just not been able to get out of neutral all season long. I did set my total at an 8.2, so looking at the under in this spot, and with the Tigers getting a +175 or greater, going to be willing to back them. Now we have my DK Nation write-up pick, 923, 924 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays, they are on the road facing off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. You don't mess with a Johan Oviedo, by the way. There was a good movie back in the day called You Don't Mess with a Johan. That's where we get that from. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, meanwhile, Jose Barrios is on the bump for the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays between -140 to -145 favorites, between +122 and +130. Your price on Pittsburgh. 9 is the total. Over is between even money and -110. The under is between -110 to a -120. And the write-up pick, you guessed it, we're fading Jose Barrios on the road. I set the Pirates more around a -130 favorite. For our good friend Jose Barrios, it has just been a sad and miserable time for him on the road. For his career, he's got a 3.56 home ERA. When he pitches at home, he is just fine. 0.9 home runs per 9 innings in his home starts between Minnesota along with Toronto on the road. .499 ERA with 1.53 home runs per 9 innings for the entirety of his career since the start of the 2022 season. .693 ERA, 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. And for Johan Oviedo, he has made 13 starts and he has allowed 1 run or less in 3 out of his last 5 since being acquired from the St. Louis Cardinals by the Pittsburgh Pirates in that time span since he got acquired by Pittsburgh. .402 ERA with about 0.6 home runs per 9 innings allowed. So he does a good job of being able to keep the ball in the air, going up against a Blue Jays team that has been relatively average in terms of their offense. I do think that they are going to be able to pick it up a little bit more moving forward, as you still have guys who are able to get on base for the team. Matt Chapman, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, all these guys, they've been able to supply at least a .318 batting average for Vlad Guerrero Jr. 7 home runs thus far this season. Bo Bichette, he's also sitting upon 7 as well. George Springer was able to hit a home run yesterday, but that's been part of the issue. He, along with Cavan Biggio, Danny Jansen, Santiago Espinal, hitting a .225 or lower, has been really killing the team. Meanwhile, for the Pittsburgh Pirates, you have had guys moving the line. Brian Reynolds, he's been stuck on 5 home runs for quite a while, but he's hitting north of a .320. Got a lot of unexpected guys that are hitting above a .260 for this team, like Miguel Andujar, Mark Mathis, Carlos Santana, Rodolfo Castro. These guys have been good. Topico Maraceno has been able to do a solid job moving the line, as well as he's got right around a .370 on base. Andrew McCutchen, even though he's old, he's been solid. And the Pittsburgh Pirates also have the leg up in terms of bullpen as well. They entered into yesterday with a top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA. David Benhar has been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Robert Stevenson has been solid. Dwayne Underwood Jr. has been able to give you about a .230 ERA. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, Yimi Garcia, Anthony Bass, north of 5 ERAs. You've got Eric Swanson, who's been really good in this bullpen, and when needed, you've been able to get a couple solid innings as well out of someone like a Tim Mayza, who's been a sub-1 in terms of his ERA, but there's no trusting in Jose Barrios for me in this spot. I set the Pittsburgh Pirates at a -130. I'm willing to take them on the money line. I do think that the bullpen from there going to be able to cobble things up, but I do think that Johan Oviedo going to be able to do a solid job in what is a relatively pitcher-friendly ballpark. So semi-total at 8.8. Looking at the under, DK Nation right-up pick. Pirates on the money line, 925, 926 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox at the road to face off against the Cincinnati Reds. Yes, we are on to Cincinnati, and they're on to Nick Lodolo getting the start for them. Mike Clevenger goes for the Southsiders. White Sox are between a +105 to a +108 underdog. Meanwhile, anywhere between -115 to -125, your price on the Reds. 9 to 9.5 is the total on the 9.5. Under is -120. The over is even on the 9. Over is between -110 to a -115. The under is a between -105 to a -110. And with the Reds, set them at a -145. I'm going to be willing to back them on the money line for the Chicago White Sox. It has just been a deplorable run of things for this bullpen, as they got completely burnt out on Thursday because of a 12-inning game, and they entered into yesterday with a .647 bullpen ERA. That is second worst in the big leagues. For the White Sox, you've got a lot of guys that they just are unwilling to take walks as well. Now, the good news for them is that they were able to get Tim Anderson back in the fold yesterday. Not a good game for Tim Anderson, as he had a trio of strikeouts, but you got Tim Anderson back in the fold. But you do have a lot of guys that they really do need to be picking it up, as this team doesn't necessarily supply a lot of power. Luis Robert has been able to give you 7 home runs along Jake Berger, but past that, haven't been able to get a lot else. Now, you do have a few guys like Andrew Vaughn, Gavin Sheets, Eloy Jimenez that are now hitting above a .240. Andrew Benintendi is hitting about a .265 long against Bonnie Grandal, but having guys like Elvis Andrus and company that are hitting below a .220, that is killing this team. Meanwhile, for the Cincinnati Reds, not a lot of power with this team either. You've got a Reds bunch that is towards the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of total home runs, but you do have a lot of guys that will be able to do a solid job of just being able to get on base. Nick Senzel, Jonathan India, TJ Friedel, Henry Ramos, all these guys are hitting at least a .275. Tyler Stevenson, he's been able to provide north of a .340 on base along Jake Fraley as well. And for the Cincinnati Reds, far better in terms of the bullpen, even with having Fernando Cruz currently on the fold. Alexis Diaz has had a sub-250 ERA since the beginning part of last season. Casey Lugumina has been able to give you a sub-250 ERA. They had to use up Lucas Sims yesterday, but Alex Young has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as well. And then for Mike Clevenger, he has just been all over the place in terms of his command, as he's starting to look a little bit more like the Mike Clevenger of old in terms of being able to get the swing and miss stuff right around 8 punch outs per 9 innings. But walks per 9, that is right around about a 4.6, as for Clevenger. He has given up a grand total of 11 runs over the course of his last 3 starts, giving up 5 home runs in that time span, and it has been a case where he hasn't been able to get a lot of swing and miss in that time span as well. 12 punch-outs over those 13 innings. Meanwhile, for Nick Lodolo, this guy has been all about getting those punch-outs, as he's getting nearly a strikeout and a half per inning. Now, he does leave himself open to giving up the deep balls. He's got a 6.16 ERA, giving up 8 home runs in 30 2/3 innings, as he has allowed a whopping 7 home runs in his last 3 games. This is a very hitter-friendly ballpark out there in Cincinnati, so that is a big reason why you're going to see Nick Lodolo give up some of those home runs, and it is a big reason why I did set my total at 9.1. So here tonight, I'm going to be taking a look at the over, but that said, with Cincinnati, I do think the Lodolo is going to be on his game. Mike Clevenger is going to knock himself out a little bit early, and that leads to a bullpen that is very, very untrustworthy with the Chicago White Sox. You've got Gregory Santos, who's pretty much the only guy in the bullpen with a sub-3 ERA, been able to get a few okay innings as well out of Keenan Middleton, but when it comes to guys like Kendall Graveman, Aaron Bummer, Alex Colme, all posting up north of a 5 ERA, there's just no trusting in them. I'm going to be willing to take the Reds in this spot at minus 115 to minus 125 price. I set them at a minus 145, and here tonight, taking a look at the over 927, 928 on the betting board. The Atlanta Braves play host to the Baltimore Orioles. Kyle Bradish is going to be going for the Orioles, and Spencer Strider is on the bump for Atlanta, and the Bravos are between minus 230 to minus 250 favorites, and between plus 195 and plus 210 is your number on Baltimore. 8 to 8.5 is the total on the 8.5. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. On the 8, over and under are both at minus 110. Set my total at an 8.2. Lone 8 that I'm seeing. As at DraftKings, I am in Las Vegas. I do not have access to that, so I'm going to be taking a look at the 8.5 under. Spencer Strider has been absolutely ridiculous all season long, and really since the beginning of the 2022 season has right around 13 punch-outs per 9 innings. So he has been putting on an absolute display, and he goes up against someone in Kyle Bradish I just have zero faith in whatsoever. It's a big reason why I had to put the Orioles at a plus 237 as an underdog. 6.14 ERA, has pitched just 14.2 innings in 4 starts thus far this season, with opponents hitting well north of a 300 off of him. You go back to the 2022 campaign, and even that year, at a 4.90 ERA, gave up right around 1.4, 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. Not bad swing and miss stuff, but was also giving up north of 3 walks per 9 innings. Now, the good news for the Baltimore Orioles is that they've got a good bullpen behind them, as they entered into the series being at number 6 in the big leagues. In terms of bullpen ERA, Yanier Cano has been a really good find for the team. I don't think that he's given up a run all season long. Felix Bautista, he's able to do a nice job of being able to close the door. Mike Baumann, Brian Baker, both of these guys have a sub-3.5 ERA, even with Keegan Aiken and Cianel Perez regressing from last season. They've been able to do a solid job. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Braves, a league average bullpen thus far this season, a 380 with that regard. Jesse Chavez, Kirby Yates, they're clearly very long in the truth. They've been up and down, and AJ Minter has not been good this year, north of a 7 ERA, so that's been a little bit of an issue, but Michael Tonkin has been able to give you some nice long relief. Nick Anderson has been relatively solid as well, and for the Atlanta Braves, this team should be able to completely slug against Kyle Bradish, as for the Atlanta Braves, they led the National League in terms of home runs last season, and you got so many guys who are able to get on base for this team. Sean Murphy, Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna Jr. hitting north of a 275, and you just take a look at the power numbers for this bunch. Entering into yesterday, they had supplied a grand total of 54 home runs in their first 32 games of the season, with Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, all at least 6 home runs thus far this season for Murphy and Acuna Jr., north of a 420 on base. You do need a little bit more out of some of these guys like an Eddie Rosario, though he's starting to pick it up. Marcell Ozuna, you get back Michael Harris in the fold, and for the Baltimore Orioles, this has been one of the better offenses in the big leagues as well. They've really utilized stolen bases, as you got the first pair of teammates to 11 plus stolen bases, and Cedric Mullins along with Jorge Mateo, and for Mateo, entered into yesterday with 6 home runs at a 372 on base. Ryan Mountcastle has been able to slug out 8 home runs. Doesn't take a lot of walks, but hitting right around 255. Adley Rushman, he does. He's been able to give you north of a 400 on base as well. So this is a really balanced Orioles lineup. But when you go up against someone like a Spencer Strider that does a good job of just being able to mow them down, and has been able to do a little bit of a better job in terms of command recently, still giving up 14 walks in 35 innings, but has also given up just 2 home runs as well. I do think that he's going to be able to have a day against the Orioles. So I did set the Braves minus 237 on the money line. If you're taking a look at that run line, you're laying between minus 110 to a minus 115, was willing to go up to a minus 125, so going to be willing to lay the Braves on line and taking a look at the 8.5 under, and we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. It is the Boston Red Sox on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies, as Bailey Falter looks to not live up to his name for the Phillies, and Corey Kluber is on the bump for Boston. 9.5 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, with the Phillies. They are between minus 134 to minus 140 favorites, between plus 115 and plus 125, your number on the Red Sox, and I did set my total at 9.8. I'm going to be looking at the over. Corey Kluber has been a little bit better recently. He had that start against the Baltimore Orioles where he gave up 1 run in 6 innings, but neither of these starters are really very trustworthy. Falter has a 5.01 ERA, 0-5 thus far this year, giving up 6 home runs in 32 and a third innings. I will say, command has been solid with them. Even last year, he was only giving up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, so it's a little bit of a saving grace there, but he's only getting right around 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's just not missing bats in general. And then for Corey Kluber, he's given up 8 bombs in 29 and a third innings, and after having a sub-2 walks per 9 inning rate last season, he's now giving up well north of 3 walks per 9 innings this year, giving up 3+ runs in all but 2 out of his 6 starts, so it has been a pretty big disaster. If you look at the raw numbers of the Boston Red Sox bullpen, they're actually relatively solid. I don't think that the Red Sox are going to maintain a 3.44 bullpen ERA, though, like they entered into Friday. You've got so many guys in this bullpen that I think are going to get rocked. Ryan Brazier, along with Richard Blyer, you throw out there guys like Zach Kelly and company, and you're just asking for trouble. John Schreiber, Chris Martin, both of these guys have a sub-230 ERA, and Brendan Bernardino has yet to give up a run this far this year. I think that that's going to be changing relatively soon. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, past Jose Alvarado, you really have nothing. And why they have Craig Kimbrell on this roster, just for the life of me, I'm never going to understand it. Now they're trying to bring in Jeff Hoffman to be trying to give this team some innings. Andrew Vasquez has actually been solid in the bullpen along with Connor Brogdon, sub-335 ERAs for them. And I do think that for the Phillies, they're going to get a nice boost with their offense, being able to get back Bryce Harper. Got to feel like he's going to be a little bit shaky for the first few weeks, even though he's gotten off to a nice few games for this team, but by and large that is going to be helping out this team. But what has really been big for the Philadelphia Phillies, being a top 3 team in the National League in terms of batting average, you've got tons of guys that are just able to get on base, as Armando Sosa, Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, Christian Pache, Bryson Stott. All these guys are at least a 275 for the team. Alec Boehm, JT Realmuto have to move the line as well. What has really been eluding them is power, with the only guy on the roster entering into Friday with north of 4 home runs being Kyle Schwarber, and he's really the one guy that doesn't get on consistently. Meanwhile, for the Red Sox, they entered into yesterday with all but 10 of their games having been played to the over, because you've got a team that really does a good job of developing. Masataka Yoshida, he has nearly a 400 on base. Justin Turner down for nearly a 370 on base. Jaron Duran, since he got recalled, he's hitting well north of a 375. Emmanuel Valdez is hitting above a 300. All of a sudden, you've got Connor Wong hitting above a 265. You just go down the list, and it's been insane. And Rafael Devers not hitting for a lot of average, but already a double-digit amount of homers for him. So I do think that both of these starters are going to be getting lit ablaze with Bailey Falter. Honestly, I think that he and Corey Kluber are relatively online. I think that both of these bullpens are relatively stinky, and I do think that the Phillies benefit a little bit from being at home, but I could only set this line at minus 112. Being able to get north of plus 115, plus 120 on the Red Sox, I'm going to be willing to take this plus number, especially having the veteran on my side, and set my total at 9.8, so also taking a look at this 9.5 over, and that will wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to Thom Cunningham, does great work over at runyourpool.com. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @unit_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, and that means I'm coming at you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.